presence, you guys. And when I look at this, I look and I see, you guys, not one of us deserves to be in God's presence. But God has chosen and God has desired so much that we would be in his presence, and that we might be able to be made holy so that we could be in his presence, that he sent his son, that Jesus, that God became man. And he died on the cross and he took the sins of the world upon himself so that you and I could know him and we could be holy. And it's attainable. It's something that God desires for us. It isn't going to happen completely in this lifetime, but we should touch on it and we should taste of his holiness enough that we desire it even more. And I think that's what happens as we get into a book like this, the book of Leviticus. A book that is really turned away from by most. But when you embrace this book, it's amazing things that happen. Because when you start to get close to God and you see what he's done for you, and you realize the promises that he's made to us, it makes you, like we just sang, I want to serve you, Lord. I want to serve you. I want to do more for you, God. And what happens? It's kind of like we just saw in the previous chapter. God laid down these blessings that were there for his people if they would be obedient. Amazing blessings. Watch the study from last week. It was so good. And then at the same time, he outlined the curses. And then what follows is, next thing you know, God speaks to the area of vows and devotion. And I was thinking about it. It's interesting that as we get into chapter 27, obviously following chapter 25, it's interesting that right after God has made very clear his word when it comes to blessings and curses, he addresses vows. And you think, well, why is it? Why is that? Well, maybe it's because God knows that here on Wednesday nights, Sunday mornings, at churches all around the world where the truth is really going out, at least in those churches where the Bible is being taught verbatim, as God's word, as it should be. But what happens? When that happens, people make promises. Anybody here ever made vows to the Lord, promises to God, commitments to Jesus at the end of a Bible study, as we're praying together at the end of a Sunday morning service? Every one of you guys, right? I mean, raise your hand if you have never made a commitment or a vow to the Lord after being touched by the encouragement to his blessings and the warnings from his curses, right? And so God addresses that here. He goes from blessings and curses to vows and devotion. And the heart, listen, is not, God doesn't just want us to make vows. And we're going to talk about vows as we get into this here. And some great stuff in this study. But God wants us to have a heart that's devoted. God wants us to literally have a heart that is devoted completely to him. And so this isn't just about words, but this is about putting words into action and how it's going to be. And basically, we get to that place where we see God's word for what it is, and we say either, Lord, since you've done this, I will do this. Or, Lord, if you'll do this. Many vows were made that way. Lord, if you will do this, I will do this. If you remember Jephthah, in the book of Judges, he's there and he's been cast out by his brothers and he's living on his own, but obviously he's grown strong, and his men with him and his brothers there of Gilead, they needed him because the Amorites were coming against them. And so they went to Jephthah and said, hey, join us. He says, but you don't like me. Basically, that's what he says when you look at it. But you don't like me. You sent me away. And now you want me to say, hey, listen, we will follow you. You will be our leader. Just stay and lead. And so he committed to doing that. And as they're going to fight against the Amorites, he made this vow to the Lord. Be careful what you promise. He said, Lord, if you will give us victory, if you will give us victory in this battle and over the Amorites and give them unto us, Lord, then when I get home, the first thing that comes out of my door of my house, Lord, I will commit to you as a burnt offering. And the Lord gave him victory. And he got home, And as he's walking home and excited about the victory of the battle, maybe forgotten his vow and his promise to the Lord, I don't know. But he remembered as soon as he saw his daughter come dancing out of the house, tambourine and song, and praising God for the victory that he'd given to her daddy. And radical. And so he's broken and he's hurt, and you can debate over the understanding of whether or not he actually killed his daughter. She said, she doesn't even, when you look at the story, she doesn't even know. He's like, oh, she's like, why are you so sad? Well, because I made a vow to the Lord. And she says, well, let me go and meet with my friends for 2 months in the mountains and mourn over my virginity, because the commitment was she's going to die and being a virgin. And then when I come home, fulfill your vow. But however it was, did he kill her? Did he not? It's debated by many. And I read a thing today where some guy said, yeah, he did. He had to. I mean, but here in the text, we'll see that you could redeem foolishness, and praise the Lord for that. But there's some things that you cannot redeem as well. And so we got to wonder at that. And was that one or was that not? And you can decide in your own study of Jephthah. But the bottom line is, we've all made foolish vows to the Lord. We've all said things we shouldn't have at the wrong time and not followed through. But with that, let's pray and commit this to the Lord. Father, we thank you that you have a plan for us, that we would follow through. Not just with the vows, Lord, that we've made to you, Jesus, but, Lord, with the devotion that would be set apart high and far above and beyond any vow. Lord, a commitment that is done. Devotion. Finished. No going back, no changing things. I'm devoted, and I will do as you have called. And so, Lord, lead us in that way, and teach us and speak to us and touch us in this study. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, so chapter 27, book of Leviticus, verse 1. And again, just to kind of segue to my friend that I spoke with today that said he's never studied the book of Leviticus before, and I encouraged him to join us. I said, we're finishing tonight, but I'm going to send you a link to the studies that Conrad has been posting on Vimeo and such, and he said that he would. So I hope that he does, because you guys, it's important. And why is it important? And we've talked about this many times. This won't be the last. But those first 5 words there, the Lord spoke to Moses. Sometimes we'll see Moses and Aaron. Anytime God has spoken and he's written it down and he's retained it for us, it's important. We can learn from it. And just listen, just because this is Old Testament doesn't mean that it's old news and it isn't important for us. There's important stuff in here, as we're going to see. So, the Lord says to Moses, verse 2, speak to the people of Israel and say to them, if anyone makes a special vow. Now again, he gives this right after he's speaking to that place of blessings and curses. And you just got to know that Israel, God's going to address vows that are going to be made for their people, for their animals, for their homes, for their land. And right now, as God gives his word, they have no land. They have no homes. They're in tents, they're sojourners, but God, he's going to come through with his promise. And so he's given them these guidelines right now so that when they get there, they know how they ought to live to honor God. And you guys, and that's the same thing for us. Sometimes we wonder, well, how is this important to me, and I'm reading my Bible. Well, listen, maybe today it isn't. But down the line in your life, as God establishes you in other ways, all of a sudden, the word that he spoke to you there back in chapter 27 of Leviticus of your life will fit there in the midst of Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John of your life, where you're at in that time. And so it's so important to put these words and hide them in your heart so the Lord can bring them out when you need them. And so a special vow. If anyone makes this special vow to the Lord, involving the valuation of persons, then the valuation of a male from 20 years old to 60 years old, shall be 50 shekels of silver, according to the shekel of the sanctuary. And so, okay, this is somebody they're going to make they've got a need, or they've received a blessing, or for some reason they're making this vow to the Lord. This is for those, say a guy from Judah. He couldn't serve in the tabernacle, so he couldn't go in and serve God that way. So making a vow is a way that he could serve God, that he could consecrate, in this case, maybe his son, or an animal, or a field. But watch what happens here, and especially as we see how these men and women and children, even babies, are valued by God, and they are brought to the place of a vow. So look again at verse 3, the valuation of the person, male, he will be from 20 years old up to 60 years old. So in their prime, 20 to 60 years old, I guess. I don't know. Very useful though. The highest number, 50 shekels of silver, according to the shekel sanctuary. If that person is a female in that age range, the valuation shall drop, to 30 shekels. So 50 shekels for a man that is 20 years old to 60 years old, and only 30 shekels for a woman? What? How is that? What does listen again? The value is assessed basically by strength, by the ability to labor. They are an agrarian society. They're going to be taking care of sheep and goats and bulls and cattle, and they're going to be growing and plowing, and so the men were assigned, in a sense, a greater worth. But don't worry, ladies, because watch it gets better. Watch what happens. So 20 to 30 shekels, 30 shekels for a woman, 50 shekels for men in their 20s up to their 60th birthday. But if the person is from, here it is, 5-year-olds, people think, can a child really accept the Lord? Can a child really serve God? You bet. I believe with all my heart. I look at little children. I look at Riley, our granddaughter, and how she serves God with her words even sometimes. Just the other day, something that she said, and I was like, it reminded me of in so many ways, Riley has reminded me of Jennifer throughout her, short life thus far. But it almost reminded me of Jennifer with Pat there, as we talked about before. And here's Riley talking to the neighbors about, being a Christian. Well, we're Christians. We're Christians. And so being a witness. But here, so a person, listen, 5 years old up to 20 years old, the valuation there shall be for a male 20 shekels, and for a female 10 shekels. And so from here we got 20 shekels and 10 shekels, so that the evaluation is in half now, rather than 30 to 50. And so, but again, take it up with God when you see him. He might have deeper understanding there, I'm sure he does, of why these numbers are what they are. I read a few things that I didn't buy it, but God's got a plan. But here's the great one. If the person is, look at this, verse 6. If the person is a month old up to 5 years old, there's a valuation there, you guys. I love it. For a month old up to 5 years old, the valuation shall be for a male 5 shekels of silver, and for a female the valuation shall be 3 shekels of silver. That's pretty good. It's like, the Lord, you think, well, so babies aren't worth as much, and little children, no, they are. But when it came to the valuation that they would be in put in a vow to the Lord for ministry, to minister to the priests and such, they're not going to be able to do as much. And we're reminded of Samuel in that, who was given to Eli to serve as the priest unto him at probably around 3 years old or so, right after he was weaned. And because the bull that was given at that time in 1 Samuel was a 3-year-old bull, many believe that probably Samuel as well was 3 years old. And to think of being given to the Lord literally Not a vow, but devoted to him, as we'll talk about a little later. But again, for strength and labor, a month old to 5 years, I mean, it's more of the gesture, I think, in this. But look at verse 7. Here you go. Ready? If the person is 60 years old or over, then the valuation of the male shall be 15 shekels. So you go from 60 years old, you're worth 50 shekels. You go to over 60 years old, 15. I mean, that's quite a drop, you know. And to think, you know, at 64, I'm not worth so much anymore. You know, it's like, you know, you look, you know, does God value me less? You know, I mean, but again, it was all about strength and labor. And I look and I think, gosh, what's been happening since I turned 60? This shoulder went, then this shoulder went, then this shoulder got better, and this shoulder's almost better, and now my foot's gone. And I'm like limping everywhere, and I'm walking around, and I look back, and here's Liam, and he's limping along behind me, and he's like 2 years old, but he's just like, are you mocking me, child? You know, like, but he's not. He's just, you know, doing what his grandpa's doing, or what his dad is doing, you know, because his dad was, back is wiped out. But all that to say this, listen, you know, forget about me. Let's talk about you, ladies. Look at this. Look at this. Again, verse 7. If the person is 60 years old or over, then the valuation for a male shall be 15 shekels, and for the female shall be 10 shekels. And so it's like the female is growing in worth. It's like women get better with age, you know, kind of thing and stuff like that. I mean, it could be. But bottom line is this. God has a plan. And in the midst of it, this is the best of it. Okay, look at verse 8. If someone is too poor to pay the valuation, then he shall be made to stand before the priest, and the priest shall value him, and the priest shall value him according to what the owner can afford. You guys, that's our God. No one is going to be left out. You know, they're poor, but they've been blessed. They're poor, but they are thankful. You know, they're poor and they want to do their part, whatever it is. And God says, hey, you know what? You have value. You have value, and the priest is going to set that value for you according to what you have, what you can afford. You guys, listen, you have value. Every single person has value. It's so easy to look at people and think, you know, because of their sin, because of their age, they're too old. You know, that's, you know, euthanasia in Canada going on and stuff like that I've been reading about lately, and Australia taking it on. And you guys, I mean, let's just put the old out of their misery. I mean, is that what's, you know, I mean, it's like I could understand that just jokingly when it comes to my pain and things like that. But, you know, even when you feel like you don't have value, you know what? What can I do? And you can serve God. And I think one of the greatest values that someone that's past 60 years old, you know, I mean, talk about 15 shekels. I would say, you know, give them their weight in gold. Because when you get old and you're a Christian, one thing I think some do, they learn to pray. They learn to pray. I think one of the things that I think is missing in the church greater than anything, I mean, you talk about it, we've mentioned it before, Billy Graham, others like him, asked the question, you know, what would you do? What would you change about your ministry if you could do anything over again or better? And so many times the answer is I would pray more. I would pray more. And I think, you know, prayerlessness, you guys, is it's probably the greatest sin in the church, maybe. Because it's literally the silent sin. Not saying anything to God. Not talking to God, not bringing my heart to Him, my cares to Him, you know. And again, praying with a brother. I mean, this isn't, I'm not even bringing this up about, you know, Tuesday mornings at our house or Thursday nights at our house from your house with the phone call prayer or whatever, or the prayer box over here, or Sunday morning before, whatever. But just your own life. Do you spend time, you know, talking to the Lord? Do you spend time in prayer? I mean, I've talked to people old and and just as they talk about how they pray. And, I want to be one of those, I have a prayer life. Do you have a prayer life? You know what I mean? That's the thing. It's like many people, if you were just to say the words prayer life, it's like, I pray, pray before my meals, I pray here or there. It's like, you guys, our lives are to be a life of prayer, of intercession, of seeking the Lord, and there's blessings that come with it. And God values that. And again, you can say, but Steve, this isn't anywhere in the text. I don't care. It was in my heart so much last night as we prayed with the men at the end of the men's study there. And Barry had to go quick and, totally understand and great. But it's like, you know what? But I don't want to miss praying with one another. You guys, how would our high priest Jesus value you? Because here, that one that is poor, and in our estimation before God, you guys, every one of us, we're poor. I don't care if you're young or you're old. You guys, we're poor before God. And to stand before our great high priest, and the priest to value you. You guys, what value would God put on you? I'll tell you what value he has put on you. He sent his son. He came. He sent his son. He allowed his son to hang on a cross, pierced for our transgressions. You guys, and so we have great value before the Lord. And so no one is left out. We can all give to God. Doesn't matter, again, if we're poor. But the vow then of an animal, and this is interesting, because when we look at verse 9, if the vow is an animal, that they may be offered as an offering to the Lord, and all of it that he gives is holy to the Lord. And he shall not exchange it or make a substitute for it, good or bad, bad for good. And if he does, tries to in fact change his mind, substitute one animal for another, we're told here, then both it and the substitute shall be holy. In other words, God gets them both. So you need to be, it's that place of, again, being careful about the vow that you make. You're making a commitment to God, and here as you do that, he says, and he'll touch more on how that is done in a minute, but he says both, you try to, well, not that one though. I'm offering in exchange to the Lord this, and you're trying to, well, I mean, we do that. I make a commitment to the Lord when it's like, well, I don't know if I can give all of what I've committed. I mean, I'll give you just two words. Ananias and Sapphira. You guys, we need to think about the vows that we make. I mean, praise God that he hasn't acted in my life in the way that he moved in Ananias and Sapphira's life. I mean, how many things have I committed to the Lord and not followed through with? I mean, we can read that story, and I don't know if any of you have ever read that and thought, wow, not me, Lord. But you guys, look at this. Watch what happens here. He says, verse 10, he shall not exchange it or make a substitute for it, good for bad or bad for good. If he does, change his mind, makes a substitute, one animal for another, then both it and the substitute shall be holy. And here it is, verse 11, and if it's any unclean animal, that in that case it may not be offered as an offering to the Lord. So an unclean animal, this is, say it's a donkey or something that is not offerable as a sacrifice, but they want to offer it as a vow, as a commitment. It's something that has worth still, though it could not be taken as a sacrifice or for food. He says that he shall stand the animal before the priest, and the priest shall value it. It shall be valued as either good or bad. As the priest values it, so it shall be. And so if he wishes to redeem it, I changed my mind, well, then you have to add a fifth to its valuation. So again, you better think before you speak, right? I mean, it's like you make this commitment to the Lord, but, think before you speak. In Ecclesiastes chapter 5, the Lord says, guard your steps speaking here through Solomon, guard your steps when you go to the house of God. I love it. Guard your steps when you go to the house of God. Listen to this. Guard your steps to draw near to listen. When you go to the house of God, you know what you were to do? We're here to listen. That's what we come for. To hear from the Lord, to hear from His Word, to draw near to listen. And we're told to draw near to listen is better than to offer the sacrifice of fools, which is what? Those that talk. And they do not know what they're doing is evil. So he says, so do not be rash with your mouth, nor let your heart be hasty to utter a word before God. Here it is, because God is in heaven. Be careful just what you're saying to God. Oh God, listen, let your words be few. Draw near to listen, and when you do, remember, God is in heaven, and you are on earth. Remember, we saw Jesus as He was speaking to the Pharisees last week and week before. Hey, I am from above, you are from below. My Father is the Father, your father is the devil. Didn't mean to point to you, Pat, but, because I know yours is not. But so, it's to come to the Lord with that honor and with few words. And look at this in verse 4. He says, jump down there. When you vow a vow to God, there we go, don't delay in paying it, for He has no pleasure in fools. Pay what you vow. It is better that you should not vow than that you should vow and not pay. Let not your mouth lead you into sin, and do not say before the messenger, oh, that was a mistake. And that's what's being addressed here in our text. That was a mistake. I didn't mean to give you that animal. I wanted to give you this animal. Well, okay, you can redeem it, but it's going to cost you. You're going to have to add a fifth to it, 20%. Other thing is this. You're going to have to trust the priest. You have to trust the priest. The priest is the one, again, and we'll see this a few places, that the priest shall value it as good or bad. The animal will be brought before the priest, and the priest that values it, so it shall be. And so, it's important that you would have fair and that you would have honest priests. And that's something that Israel had issues with. I think it's something that, the world has issues with today. Fair and honest priest. Fair and honest men of God. You guys, Eli, if you remember in 1 Samuel chapter 2, Eli's sons, Eli was the high priest, and he had 2 sons. What are they? In line for the priesthood, right? Eli had 2 sons, and we're told Eli's sons were worthless men. And why? Because they did not know the Lord. Here these guys grew up in and around the tabernacle and serving the Lord with their father. They didn't know God. You guys be careful as your children grow up around you, that make sure that they know God. Not that they just know of Him. Surely His sons knew of Him. They knew how to do all the things that Dad did. They'd watched Him serve in all the ways that He would, at least those that they were able to see outside of the tent. But you guys, we need for the children of the priests, they weren't allowed to go even into the holy place. Surely not into the Holy of Holies on that one day a year that only the high priest could go. But even the priesthood, their children didn't get to go with them into the ministry to see what would happen within the holy place. You guys, that's different for us. Our kids, they should be with us in the holy place. They should be with us. They should be seeing us round about in ministry. I grew up with my dad watching him and my mom watching them in ministry my whole life. To the point where I knew, you know what? Basically, when I grow up, that's what I want to be. That's who I want to be. And I spent some time doing my own thing. And I knew it was wrong, and we'll get into that in a minute here. But you guys, all that to say, when your child grows up, that whole train up a child in the way they should go, and when they have grown, one of those translations is they shall return. You guys, that's what happens. We need to be training up our kids. Eli's sons, they weren't trained. Amazingly, interestingly, we're told that in verse 17 of 1 Samuel 2, that thus the sin of the young men was very great in the sight of the Lord, For the men treated the offspring of the Lord with the offering of the Lord with contempt. So these men that are these priests under their father, being trained as priests, they treated the offering of the Lord with contempt. We know that they would take the fat that was supposed to be given to the Lord, and they kept it for themselves. We know that in chapter 3, we're told that they were, in the end of chapter 2, that they were sleeping. They were laying with the women who were serving at the entrance to the tent of meeting. It sounds like some of the attacks that are verified, even accusations against clergy today and those within the priesthood in the Catholic Church. You guys, later on in the book of Samuel, we were just studying it last night. When Samuel became old, Samuel was, talk about Eli being stoked. Hey, his sons were evil, but he had this one that God had given him. A stepson, almost in a sense, a foster child that Samuel was given to him to serve him there at the tabernacle. And Samuel grew up to be faithful. He was the first of Israel's prophets. He was the last of Israel's judges. And he had 2 sons as well. The first one's name was Joel, and the second's name was Abijah. Yet, verse 3, here it is. Samuel's sons did not walk in his ways, but they turned aside after dishonest gain. They took bribes, and they perverted justice. Samuel's sons as well. You guys, all that to be said, whether it was Samuel was a bad dad and didn't raise his sons right, or raised his sons right and they chose wrong, we don't know. Bottom line is, when they should have been doing right, they were misrepresenting God. They turned aside after dishonest gain and took bribes and perverted justice. And the result of that is that the people of Israel that they were to be leading turned their backs on God. And they turned their backs on God's plan. And they said, hey, we want a king. And God said, listen, and Samuel was bummed. God, did you hear what they said? They want a king. They've rejected me. And the Lord's like, Samuel, hey, get over it. They've rejected me for a long time. And it is not you that they're rejecting, but it's me. Great word for those in ministry that serve God faithfully and yet feel like they're rejected, over and over again, even as God was. But you guys, listen. In that place where God warns them, hey, if you're going to get a king, God tells Samuel, go tell him what's going to happen. And the Lord says, hey, when you come into the land and I give you a king, the one that you've asked for, he will reign over you. He will take your sons. He'll have them run before his chariots. He'll appoint them as commanders of thousands and fifties. In other words, they're going to fight his battles. They're going to plow his ground. They're going to reap his harvest. They're going to make his implements of war and equip his chariots. And he will take your daughters. He will take your best of your fields. He will take 1/10 of your grain. And you're already giving 1/10 to God, as we'll see in Leviticus since we close the book out tonight. And now you're going to give 1/10. So that's 20% of your income now you're giving up. And God goes through all of this and tells him, here's what's going to happen. The king is going to make you his servants, and the female servants of his, and you will be his slaves, your young men, and your donkeys will be his. He will put them to work, and he'll take 1/10 of all your flocks, and in that day you're going to cry out. And God says, but I won't answer you in that day, for you have chosen this for yourselves. Why did they choose it? Listen, all that, well, of course, because they were foolish, Israel, right? True, but at the same time, what was their choice? The judges that were over them were perverted and taking bribes and perverting justice. And so they're like, well, we'll try our luck with a king. But God warned them. And again, the idea is that, maybe they should have just asked God, God, give us new judges. Give us new judges. Raise up those who would be fair, those who would be just and right and true. Samuel's sons aren't going to make it. To a great degree, we as a church rely on the faithfulness of the way priests, pastors, leaders in the church, Christians that stand up for their faith and represent God with their voices, and so that all know that you're a Christian. the values that we bring to ministry, the world watches and sees. And the world can turn away from God because of the values that they see in our lives. Oh, but he serves at Calvary Chapel, but I saw him, saw this one guy one time, actually I didn't see him. I heard of it and I've seen it before, but I was talking with somebody that they'd gone to our church and they left. You loved them? We loved them. We loved them. We loved them. And it was hard. They left. And again, I can't tell you how many times I've just felt rejected, But it's okay. You go on. You go forward. You move on. And you keep serving God. I read a thing today that I think it was my wife posted, that somebody else had posted or reposted, Toasties, I don't know. But it was basically about how, people leave churches, but the pastor doesn't get to leave. He has to stay there and keep his eyes on God and serve him and just take it. But so I took it, and they left, but they came back. And I was so stoked to have them back, but I was so sad and brokenhearted at what brought them back. What brought them back was that, they were at Costco, in line at Costco, and all of a sudden, boom, up behind them, they got bumped by a cart, and they looked back, and it was their pastor with a shopping cart at Costco packed full of beer and wine. What's wrong with that, Pastor? It was a lot. Here's the thing. Raul Reese, watching the pastors' conference online, the little bits and pieces I've kind of got in the last couple of days, and he was just like in tears as he gets to at times, and going through radical stuff with seizures where he just, in the midst of a message, he didn't do it yet that I've seen, but I've seen him do it in the past where he stopped and next thing didn't know what was going on and where is he, but he started having these seizures, and now he says, I feel it, and when it starts, and it's like down in my stomach and my lower abdomen, and I feel it starting, and it makes its way up, and I know that it's going to hit. And so as soon as I feel it, if I'm in the pulpit, I just say, I'm sorry, I have to go. And he walks back in the back and sits down and goes through his seizure. And he goes, but this is, what the Lord's given me. They haven't come up with a cure for it, whatever, but, it's the thorn in my flesh. And he goes, and I'm going to keep serving God. And he goes, for some of you pastors here at this conference today, where there's hundreds of guys there, and he goes, if you think it's okay to drink as a pastor, anybody else, make your own choices, but don't get drunk. For any Christian, it's dissipation, it's a waste. Be filled with the Spirit. But don't get drunk with wine. But for a pastor, I don't want to drink a beer sitting, I don't even want to have dinner with my wife sitting at a bar if that's the only open place to sit, because I don't want somebody thinking, oh, look at the pastor, and they see you up there, you're laughing, somebody cracks a joke, and you're having a good time. I like to have a good time, I'm out to dinner, I'm laughing, and you're loud and laughing, and people go, oh man, I saw him sitting at the bar, he's wasted, it's like, no. I don't want to have a beer sitting in front of me or anything that looks like a cocktail. Why is that? Because I don't want anybody to say, oh, I saw the pastor. A shopping cart full of booze. You guys, there's something wrong in our world when that's acceptable, and there's something even more wrong when there's pastors that are going to fight for your right as a pastor to drink. You know what? Jesus is coming back. And he's looking for those that are, what were the words? We just saw it a few times. Hey, you shall be holy, even as I am holy, says the Lord. We're to set apart. We're not to be like the world. We're to be different. And so the priest needs to be able to be trusted. And so verse 14, and I like this one, when a man dedicates his house, And again, this isn't what it's speaking of, but I think that every man should dedicate his house to the Lord. I think if you're a Christian, your home should be dedicated to the Lord. You know, holy to the Lord. It may not be written over your door, but it should be written over your heart, understanding that this belongs to the Lord. Just thinking that, you know, hey, the guy that sees that everything that he has belongs to the Lord. And so this man, verse 14, he dedicates his house as a holy gift to the Lord. The priest, here it is, shall value it. It's either good or bad. Nice house, a little shabby, you know. But as the priest values it, so it shall stand. So again, you need an honest priest in this. And if the donor wishes to redeem his house, you know, he shall, here it is, add a fifth to the valuation, and it shall be his. And so, I mean, God tells us how we're to give and how we're not to give and how we're to live in that way. In 1 Corinthians chapter 9, I love it, where the what?
Laurie got locked in upstairs.
Oh.
They unlocked her.
Hey, no, tell her she's, you know, we lost another one, folks. No. Conrad, you got a key, your key? For those of you who are online, we had someone that went to use the restroom and they got locked in up there. So we're going to get them out of there. See how good God is? But in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, the Lord tells us, you know, about, well, what are our guidelines for giving today? Where we can see some of them here as we get into this. But the Lord's very clear to tell us that, listen, when it comes to giving, here's just some couple simple guidelines for giving for us. The one that sows sparingly will reap sparingly. The one that sows bountifully will reap bountifully. Here it is. Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. You guys, the Lord wants to be able to bless us and guide us and lead us. And when it comes to vows that we might make, he doesn't want us to make a rash vow. He wants us to make our commitments and our vows to him out of just being thankful for how good he is and how faithful he's been. And so verse 16, if it's your land, so we've seen the dedication or a vow of people, of animals, and then here your home, and now your land. They had no land already. Remember in this, they had no homes, they had no land, but God set this up so that they'd be ready for the time that they would. If a man dedicates to the Lord part of the land that is in his possession, then the valuation shall be in proportion to its seed, basically the production of the land. And so he says it'll be a homer of barley seed shall be valued at 50 shekels of silver. And if he dedicates his field from the year of Jubilee, here this is important, we just studied the year of Jubilee, every 50 years, what's going to happen? All the land is given back to those who had owned it previously, the land that had belonged to them and to their family. And so if you dedicate a field, verse 17, from the year of Jubilee, the valuation, God says, shall stand. So 50 years, you're going to have it for 50 years, the land will have full value if you dedicate your land at the year of Jubilee. But if you dedicate your land, your field after the Jubilee, then the priest shall prorate it, basically. He shall calculate the price according to the years that remain until the year of Jubilee, and a deduction shall be made from the valuation. So if you decide you're going to sell your land and you're going to dedicate your land, and it's 5 years into the year from the year of Jubilee, then it's worth 45 years of what it might be, and so they make this prorated evaluation of the land. And verse 19, if he who dedicates the field wishes to redeem it, then he shall add a fifth. You want that field back? Well, add a fifth to its valuation price, and it'll remain his. So it's going to cost you, if you make this vow, you make a commitment, and then renege. But if he does not wish to redeem the field, or if he has sold the field to another man, it shall not be redeemed anymore. But the field, when it is released in the Jubilee, shall be a holy gift to the Lord, like a field that has been devoted. There it is, devoted. This is just a commitment. It's just given. It's done. It's over. And here it is. The priest shall be in possession of it. And here, God covers everything. Look at verse 22. If he dedicates to the Lord a field that he has bought, which is not a part of his possession, so he's bought it, but it isn't part of his possession. It's somebody else's possession. He's bought it from them, and knowing that it's going to have to be given back at the year of Jubilee to the one in possession. So he's bought it. It's not his, part of his possession, but he dedicates that field. Well, then the priest shall calculate the amount of the valuation for it up to the year of Jubilee, and the man shall give the valuation on that day as a holy gift to the Lord. And in the year of Jubilee, the field shall return to him from the one who it was bought, to whom the land belongs as a possession. And so God is faithful. He's going to honor the rules and the guidelines that he's given when it comes to the year of Jubilee and all these things. And verse 25, the valuation, in case you were wondering, the valuation shall be according to the shekel of the sanctuary. And so what is the sanctuary shekel? Okay? A sanctuary shekel is 20 gerahs. There you go. Pretty simple, I mean, and but 20 gerahs shall make a shekel, and so that's a gerah is about, note in my Bible says, about 1/50th of an ounce. And so do the math on your own time, not right now. But look at verse 26. It says, but here, a firstborn of animals. So somebody's they're gonna make a vow and commit the firstborn of one of their animals to the Lord. He says, no. The firstborn of animals already belongs to the Lord. As the firstborn belongs to the Lord, no man may dedicate the firstborn. And it's like you can't give God what's already his, And don't you know, people try, It's like, you already know, people already understand what's been given, and then they try to just kind of ride on that one again. God's saying, no, don't try to look like what you've given me, you're giving to me again. But it's the Lord's. But look at verse 27. He says, and if it is an unclean animal, then he shall buy it back at the valuation. So it's a donkey or something that can't be eaten, but it can be sold. And so you can buy it back at the valuation and add a fifth to it. Or if it is not redeemed, it shall be sold at the valuation. So that can be then, something that the priest has to sell, and they're able to use that money for their own needs and such like that. But look at verse 28. This is great. No devoted thing, but no devoted thing that a man devotes to the Lord of anything that he has, whether man or beast or his inherited field, none of it shall be sold or redeemed. For every devoted thing is most holy to the Lord. You guys, this is that place of being, in a sense, as they say, being all in. Devoted things were different than just something where they'd made a vow. The vows, for the most and the greater part, were redeemable. But here, no, something that's devoted was different, because if it was devoted, it's just done. If it's devoted, it's with never is there a thought given to anything, but it's done. It's God's. It isn't mine anymore, at all. I have no say in that. And as we're going to come into the tithes in a moment here, tithes are devoted to the Lord. It's out of your hands. It's not yours. It's His. And I love this because, when I was thinking about that place of being devoted, never a thought to anything but done. It's God's. I was thinking in Acts 2:42, at the beginning of the church, where it says, and they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, breaking of bread, and to prayer. You guys, that's what God wants. He wants us to be, that there's never a thought. When it comes to, I'm going to be at Bible study. There's not a thought. I'm going to be at Bible study. Unless I'm sick, I'm going to be at Bible study. Unless I can't be at church on Sunday morning, I'm going to be there. There's never a thought when it comes to those things. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the fellowship. I'm going to be devoted, you guys, whether you guys are devoted to me or not. I'm going to be here, ready to see you, open arms, devoted to the apostles' teaching, to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread, that, you know, to sharing of meals together, to taking communion together, and to prayer. Again, devoted to prayer. It's not a thought. Do I think about it sometimes? You bet I do. Tuesday mornings? No way. I'm up. I'm ready. I may forget sometimes just because I'm tired and whatever, but it's not like it's ever a thought. Hey, I don't want to pray. I mean, I love it. I'm blessed. Thursday nights, sometimes there's a thought, but you know, but there's not I don't have a choice. When it comes to those times that I've devoted, I've committed to the Lord, I'm going to be there. You guys, it'll change your life. It'll change your life. A life of devotion will change your life. Well, what does that mean? Doesn't that mean I get up in the morning, I read my Bible, and I pray, and maybe worship a little or something like that? And that's devotions, right? Read a devotional. I got a devotional. I know the Daily Bread. And sometimes, you know, I don't have time to read it because I got to go. You know, so I just listen to it on my phone on the way. It's kind of nice. It's kindly, old, gentle man's voice, and so the Lord has said. You know, and it's like, I like it. You know, it's like, you know, but again, that's not what we're talking about. And it's all good, though I think it's better to be able to sit down and hear from the Lord rather than hear somebody else's voice. Hear the Lord's voice. Hear your own heart and your own voice in the text as you're reading from a devotional or God's Word. But more important than that is that place of just, I'm devoted. There's no question, not a thought given to these things. The apostles' teaching, I'm going to be there. Fellowship, I'm going to be a part. Breaking of bread, you know. What can I bring, you know? And to prayer. It was neat last night. This guy, Trent, showed up. Really nice guy, was there on Sunday and ran into Kimberly and he got my number there, and he came last night and he brought a cherry pie. And the best thing about it was I don't think anybody touched it until everybody, oh, you did? Pat had a little. It's like almost the whole thing was there when everybody left, and you know, and so I finished it off. But I'm devoted. I'm completely devoted, you know. And but it's sweet, man. Tuesday nights, it's work, you know. Get the house clean, get the house ready, get the kids fed, get the, you know, trying to help out, you know, with Nicole and those guys with that, and get it all done. And you're like, okay, and then try to act normal when people get there, you know. It's like, and then, but to have that time of worship and prayer together, and to be in the Word. And you guys, I challenge you in that area of devotion. You know, never a thought. Get to that place. Ask the Lord. Ask for the Lord's help. Lord, bring me to that place where there's never a thought. This is where I'm going to be. And with that, verse 30, every tithe of the land. And this is interesting because the tithe, being the word tithe, means tenth. It's every tithe of the land, a tenth of the land. Whether of the seed of the land or of the fruit of the trees, it is the Lord's. It is holy to the Lord. It's a tenth of what God has given to us, you know, it's to be given back to Him. And people say, but wait, Steve, down here it says in verse 34, the very last, I'm looking for a loophole to get out of the tithe. You know, the very last verse of chapter 34, these are the commandments that the Lord commanded Moses for the people of Israel on Mount Sinai. It's not for the church. Listen, the big 10, the 10 commandments, tithe's not in there, you know. But it is here. We see it as a command in God's Word. We see it in the law. But when it comes to Jesus, people say, "Oh, Jesus never talked about the tithe," you know. Well, yeah, He did, you know, and because you know that the questions came up as we don't have everything that was written. Speaking of Jesus and his words and all his teachings, I can guarantee you he addressed tithes and such, and in a way that was probably, made some feel a little bit awkward, like the rich man that walked away, hey, he told him, hey, tithe, give everything. You need to give everything. Some people maybe do need to. They need to get rid of it because that binds them, and but the tithe, Jesus to the Pharisees that were there, and just as he was finishing the woes and all that kind of stuff, to the Pharisees that were there, Jesus said, he said, you guys are so tight. You give a tenth of you tithe a tenth of your dill and even your cumin. You're taking your spices and making sure, here's a tenth this to the Lord, Make sure, give this, it's like they're just so legalistic in that. And he said, listen, he goes, but you've forgotten the greater thing, that place of love and loving God, loving your brother, the idea there. And he says to them, you should have not forgotten the former, that area of the tithe, but not forgotten the latter either. You should be doing, that's good that you're doing that, basically. Far out, But don't forget the other. And so he didn't leave that. And beyond all that, it's like it's a matter of the heart. I think the people that have a real hard time with the tithe, they have a hard time with, whatever number you might put on it. We have a hard time, you guys. Our flesh doesn't want to let go of the things of the flesh. It's just every one of us. I don't want to let go of my money, but I've learned that, what? When it comes to devoted, never a thought. There's not a thought given at all to what has been given to us, what we have received, that, hey, a tenth is the Lord's. And honestly, I think, for most should pray about, well, is the tenth the number? Or, Lord, what do you have for me? I think it's a good starting place. We challenged our church many years ago when we were at 0 one time for people to, hey, search your hearts, see what the Lord says, and people were coming back with numbers that were higher than that. And so people, I'll take the 10th. No. Others say, I take the 5th. No. But it's holy to the Lord. It's all God's. It is the Lord's. It is holy to the Lord. Verse 31, if a man wishes to redeem some of his tithe, add a 5th. I like that. It's like, okay, you want it back here? Okay, add a 5th. And every tithe of the herd of the flocks, every 10th animal of all that pass under the herdsman's staff shall be holy to the Lord. One shall not differentiate between good or bad, or neither shall he make a substitute for it. And if he does substitute for it, then both it and the substitute are the Lord's. Are holy. It shall not be redeemed. The things that we're to give to God, we're to give to God. They're not to be bought back. And if you try to take them back, it's going to cost you more. And when you look at this, the tithe of the herds and the flock is an interesting one, because this is for every 10th animal that passes under the herdsman's staff shall be given to the Lord. So you show up, and it's time for the tithe. And you have the animals. They're, okay, bring in the sheep. And the sheep are coming in. Oh, okay, here it goes. 1, 2, but bring the good ones. Yeah, good ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, that 10th one. Oh man, he's a big, fat, strong. I told you, put the sickly, scrawny one as the 10th, every 10th. That guy's getting fired. But I mean, isn't that? I mean, I can't say that I know that ever happened, but I'm sure that happened. Because isn't that where our minds go to, what can I get by with? What is just enough that I can have the best and still give God, well, the rest? I mean, you guys, the Lord takes care of this here. He says, don't differentiate good or bad, just let it go. Hey, whatever the 10th is, hey, that's the Lord's. I mean, what a great way to walk. I remember one time we were teaching on the tithe. We were in Leviticus on Wednesday nights, and we were somewhere where we were talking about tithing on Sunday mornings, just because, and you know me, we only talk about it when we're there pretty much. And And by the way, this is the first place that we see the tithe literally listed in the Word, Book of Leviticus. But there is a guy at our church, and his wife had said to him, you know, I feel like we need to start tithing. And he's like, tithing? Man, they've just been coming for a while, and, you know, a tenth? We barely get by with what we have, and you want to give a tenth of what we have, you know? And she says, let's just try it. Can we just try it? Let's just try it. You know, he goes, you know, like for a month or something. And she goes, well, let's try it for 2 months. Let's just try it for 2 months. And so they did. And they committed, and he committed to it, you know, because he was a believer, but he was young in his faith, and I don't blame anybody for that place. It's a place where you grow, and God shows you. But he came to the place where, you know, they came to me after 2 months, and he's like, Pastor Steve, I can't believe it. We've been tithing. I was like, well, I didn't know because I don't see the books there, you know, but he said, we've been tithing. And I told, you know, my wife I didn't want to do it, but we decided to do it for the last 2 months. And he goes, and we're doing better than we were. It's like amazing how God takes care of things. When we would go and do our taxes, for years, when we would go into our taxes, and we had the CPA that was helping us with them after we'd started the church, and she goes, you know, every year you guys come in here with your stubs and all your stuff, and she goes, and you give more money, and you're making less money every year. You realize you're making, and, you know, as we were going down, you know, as the church was being built up, you know, whatever, and we were slowly but surely, and she was a sweet little gal, and but here's the deal: people see. They see if you're real. And again, it isn't that you're to advertise your tithes and all the rest, but we're to be those that it should just be a no-brainer, never a thought given to these things that we know should be devoted to God. No substitute, listen, there is no substitute for holy. There is no differentiating, you know, between good and bad. There's no substitute for what is right and what is holy and what is truly devoted. We missed one part. Sorry, verse 29. No one devoted who is devoted for destruction from mankind shall be ransomed. He shall surely be put to death. You guys, for the one that's devoted to destruction from mankind, this is someone that's been put under the death penalty. Leviticus 24:17. If you kill someone, you are killed. Leviticus 20 for sexual weirdness and crimes. Again, we saw, you know, the death penalty many times there. Could not be redeemed. Praise the Lord. You know, that whole, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. No remedy. And there was no remedy for Israel because of they turned their back on God for so many years. You guys, we've been given a remedy in Christ. We've been given the remedy for all sin, and He lifts us out of death. So surely there's a difference in Christ, which is where this brings us here. Listen, in Hebrews 13, verse 8, as we finish this out, we read it already. These are the commandments that the Lord commanded Moses for the people of Israel on Mount Sinai. In Hebrews 13, verse 8, you know the words, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. That's our Lord. And this book, as you guys have seen, as I got to share with my friend today on the phone, you guys, this is about, and it is complete in Jesus Christ. This book is about Jesus Christ, the book of Leviticus. It is complete and completed in Christ. Jesus, listen, as we've gone through this, and we're not going to take time, but just going to give you the fast flyover. Jesus was and is the fulfillment of all the sacrifices. We saw that as we went through the studies at the beginning of the book. Jesus is the fulfillment of the tabernacle. Everything in it, everything around it, you guys, what the ministry of it. Jesus is, as we saw just a few weeks back, He is the fulfillment of the feast. 4 that have already been fulfilled completely in Christ, by Christ, on the actual day of those feasts. 3 that will be completed by the Lord in the future, and the promises are ours, you guys. It's amazing. Jesus, listen, he is not only the fulfillment of sacrifices, the fulfillment of the tabernacle, the fulfillment of the feast. Jesus is, and this is one of the best, he is our kinsman redeemer. He is God who became man so that he could come and redeem us. The creator for his creation, our kinsman redeemer. He is, as we saw tonight, Jesus is the cause for our devotion. You know, why did they devote themselves to the apostles' teaching, the fellowship, the breaking of bread, and to prayer? Why is there never any thought into doing anything else? It's just real devotion. It's because of the devotion that we saw in Jesus Christ. He's our reason to say, done, devoted. Now turning back, no going any other way. You know, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Done. Joshua was devoted. The same words we saw here tonight many times. Holy to the Lord. And all of that, understanding, you guys, that everything that I have comes from him and is already his. And so there's no differentiating. You guys, what God has given is his to us, and it's ours and our joy to give back to him. All that I have comes from him and is his. The cause for my devotion is the one who has been devoted to me, the Lord Jesus Christ, my kinsman redeemer, the fulfiller of the feast, and the one that calls me to a great feast one day. The one that shows me what life is in Christ, the tabernacle. And the one who has fulfilled the sacrifice by dying on the cross for my sins. Again, this book is about Jesus, and it is complete in him. And it is for us, everyone. Good book. Good book. Next week, the book of Numbers. And let's pray. Father, we come before you, and God, I thank you. I thank you for, again, completing another book, Lord. And this book that so many would turn away from, Lord, but as we've turned to it and been faithful to it, God, Lord, all I can say is I'm excited for what's next. Finding things and seeing things here in your word, things that we've been reminded of through these months as we've gone through the book of Leviticus, but at the same time, new things, amazing things. God, looking at that place of sacrifice, as the priest would take that final sacrificial lamb there on the Day of Atonement, Lord, and sacrifice him. And there at Passover, that final lamb that would be sacrificed, Lord, all pointing to you, the Lamb of God, that takes away the sins of the world. And at 3 o'clock on the Passover, Lord, when you died and they shoved that spear in your side and out came blood and water, Lord, out from the temple would come the blood and the water of all those sacrifices and would flow out and down the valley of Kidron. Lord, you're so good. So many things fulfilled in this book, Lord. Reminders. Lord, help us to remember. Stir us up for you all the more. Lord, that in all these things, Lord, that we've seen tonight, Lord, that in all these things that we would be reminded of in the days to come, Lord, we would be all the more devoted to you. No question as to whose we are and where we're going to be when it comes to the things of God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.